All right, more good information coming for you right now. We have our tech corner for today, and this one comes from MicroRidge. MicroRidge, we've done a few tech corners with MicroRidge in the past. This is their new mobile collect system, and Dirk is going to show it to you now. So Dirk, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so we have talked about wireless gauging systems before, and today we're going to talk about a wireless gauging system from MicroRidge called the Mobile Collect. But before we get into their specific product, just a reminder of what wireless gauging really means. So some of you probably use handheld gauges like this. This is a caliper. You might have a micrometer. You might have other types of gauges. But one of the issues with them is very often you use a wired connector to go from your digital gauge into your laptop or data collection device in order to get the data from your digital gauge into your computer. Well, the problem with a wired gauge, and there's several, is number one, you're limited by the length. You can only go so far away, limited by the length of your cable from your gauge to your computer. You're also limited by the number of ports. A wired gauge has to go into a piece of hardware, and that hardware may have 4 ports, it may have 8 ports, but that's it. Once you've used up the number of ports, you've used up the number of gauges that you can connect in simultaneously. Wireless gauging gets away from all that. You can have hundreds of devices connected into your data collection system or your laptop. So wireless gauging makes a lot of sense. So let's take a look at MicroRidge. We've had MicroRidge on the show before. They've actually done some nice upgrades to their product line. I want to go through those. So if we go to the gauge cam here, their old transmitter, the transmitter is what connects to your gauge. That's over on this side here. You can see that's much larger than their new one. Their new one is about 75% smaller than their older transmitter. And the nice thing about that is it fits very nice in behind a small gauge. So this is like this is a 6-inch Mitutoyo caliper. And you can see it just tucks very nicely in behind the gauge, so it's out of your way. Obviously, you got your connecting cable comes out of the top, goes into the transmitter. But the real change really is if we go and look at the receiver. This is the old MicroRidge Mobile Collect USB base. There would have been a USB cable that runs from the base into the laptop, and this would be your receiver. This is the new receiver. This is the MicroBase. You can see it's about the size of a USB thumb drive. It's about a quarter of the size of the old USB base, which means that if you're using a laptop, you don't have this big box with a cable connected to it that you have to do something with. You've just got your little dongle plugged in there and you're good to go. Now, they do still sell, by the way, they do still sell the Mobile Collect USB base, and the reason for that is some people may need this little option that's on there, which is a switched input. So if you need to trigger data collection from maybe a foot switch or a mechanical switch that's on a fixture or something like that, you would still want this because this allows you to trigger your data measurement from a switch. If you don't need that, actually the smaller one just makes a lot more sense, much more compact, and they cost the same price, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so let's see how you'd use this. So if we go to our screen capture here, what we're going to see here, and let me close out one of my other programs. Okay. This is called the Express Setup, and this software comes with the MicroRidge product. First thing we're going to do is we're going to say find base. And all this is doing is looking for a receiver that's plugged into the laptop and then is also connecting to it and then displaying what devices have been associated with that receiver. Now I've got 2 devices associated with it. I have a caliper associated and a micrometer associated. All that means is that this is set up to recognize input from these 2 devices. I could have hundreds of devices connected into this receiver. So that's one of the, like I said, one of the advantages of this type of system. Now, I'm going to enable communications just so I can test it. So I'm going to click the data collection on the data collection button on my caliper. And each time I click the button, as I click the button, I'm collecting data into the Mobile Collect. So this is really just testing that the data is coming. I can see it. On the left-hand side, we can see here with my mouse, it's telling me what this is. This is the caliper. This was a label I gave it. And this is the actual measurement coming in from the caliper. So now I know that I've got everything set up, ready to go. It's collecting data. Now, how are we going to use it? Well, this comes with another piece of software called WedgeLink. And I'll just open up that. don't need to see all my email there. WedgeLink operates like a keyboard. It mimics a keyboard. So what WedgeLink does, it allows me to take the data from my mobile collect system and input it into any piece of software you have. So whether you have, let's say, your favorite SBC software, you have your gauge calibration software, or as we'll see here, I'm just using Excel. All this does, it mimics a keyboard, so you can connect any kind of software into this. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to load my little configuration file. I've set up certain parameters that I want to use. So WedgeLink is running, and I just have Excel open here. So every time now I collect data, it's auto-populating Excel. And we can see, if we go back to our screenshot here, I've collected date, time, the name of the device, the label on the device, which is caliper, and of course, my reading. Now, the first three are optional. I have chosen to collect date, time, and label of the device. I don't have to do that. I could collect just the data if I wanted, but it makes a lot of sense to do this, particularly if you're bringing it into SPC software. You probably want a date and time stamp to know when it was collected, and you might want to know the type of the device, particularly if you're using a lot of different devices. Some software have the capability to sort the data as it's coming in by label. So you could be collecting data from a number of different devices, and your software, if it's small enough, would recognize, oh, this is coming from the caliber, put it over here. This is coming from a micrometer, put it over there. This is coming from an LVDT, put it over there. So one of the issues that comes up very often when we're talking about wireless gauging, and why a lot of people in the past have shied away from it, is the question of, if I work in a really noisy RF environment, is wireless gauging going to work? And the issues there that a lot of people are aware of is EMF. This is just noise coming off of mechanical equipment, electronic equipment. And also it's simply, there's a lot more Wi-Fi devices, there's a lot more devices out there, Bluetooth and so forth, that are transmitting on RF frequencies. I mean, in the world we live in now, everything is wireless. So is there going to be interference? Is there going to be something that's going to block my gauge from being able to communicate from the transmitter to the receiver? So MicroRidge has offered a couple different things to help solve this. And we'll go back to our screen share here. First of all, they have something called an RF sniffer. And all this does is oops, I got to close my other software. All the RF sniffer does is it goes through, and we can see here, it's scanning through all of the frequencies that MicroRidge uses on their transmitter. And it's looking to see, are these frequencies busy? Is there anything that's putting noise or a lot of transmission that would make a particular channel that they use not a wise channel to use? And we see on the left, there's a couple areas here, channel 17 and 18, that we might not want to use. The rest are green. MicroRidge is saying, hey, that's fine. By default, MicroRidge uses what they call their channel 21 on their devices. We can see it looks fine here. If that had been really busy, if I was worried about it, I would simply go into the express setup that I showed you just a minute ago and simply tell the base to operate on a different channel, and that would take care of the problem. Now, the other thing that they do, and this is really clever, is that the data transmission part is just milliseconds. In other words, there isn't a need for them to maintain a continuous link between the transmitter and the receiver. Every time you tell it to collect data, the transmitter comes on, sends data for a few milliseconds, that's it, and turns off. So that transmission only has to punch through to the receiver for a couple milliseconds. And even in a noisy environment, that's going to be something that is most likely not going to be a problem. Even if it does encounter a problem, it'll try again if it can't get through the first time. So there's a lot of both hardware and software tools at your disposal that are going to make sure that even in a noisy RF environment, this is going to work. Okay, so what kind of gauges can this work with? Well, that's the great thing. This happens to be Mitutoyo. MicroRidge has a bunch of different cables that they sell. The cable is simply a cable that goes from your device to your transmitter. And they've got cables for Brown & Sharp, Onosoki, Silvac, Mitutoyo, you name it, they most likely have a cable that is going to work for your particular gauges. And in fact, they've got a little, I've included a link for it in the player page down there. They've got a little page on their website that allows you to choose which cables you need for your particular application, your particular gauge, so you can check that out. So, total cost, this is pretty darn cheap. We're talking for the transmitter and for a receiver, whichever one. They have several different receivers. I've shown you 2 here. And the cable that matches your particular gauge, $743. So a complete kit, transmitter, receiver, and connecting cable, $743. And you're ready to go with wireless gauging. So if you're more interested in this, if you follow the link underneath the player page, there's 2 links. One just takes you out to the MicroRidge site. The other one takes you out to the selection page to help you select which cables and which transmitters, receivers, and so forth work for you. So check that out. So once again, thanks to the folks at MicroRidge for sending us a set of their Mobile Collect wireless gauging tools. Thanks, guys.
Yes, and there you go. Again, that is MicroRidge, and that's Dirk doing our tech corner for this week with the MicroRidge Mobile Collect. Good job there, Dirk. Really nice
yeah,
stuff.
We've had them on before, and they have made some real nice improvements to the equipment there. So
no doubt, no doubt.